What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? It is finally here. The NFL draft, the first round. Didn't think we were going to make it, but we did, and we can officially rejoice. So, what I want to do today is I want to hit on a couple things that one's like a guiding principle I have when it comes to the draft, in terms of the way teams look at it, and then just a philosophical thought on guys being over the next couple days devastated for not getting drafted higher and celebration for guys getting drafted really high, and how ultimately, I mean, this is not going to be breaking news here, but doesn't mean much in the long run in terms of the success and failure of the players. And then I wanted to hit on a couple things that, for me, the biggest stories going into the next 24, 48 hours in terms of individual players and just big picture thoughts when it comes to different NFL teams. So we will do some of my biggest storylines slash headlines that I'm most excited to watch play out. But before we dive in to some football and mainly the NFL draft, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time. Do you want to go to a game? Do you want to go to an event? Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go to a comedy show? Do it on us, because if you want to get outside, if you want to go enjoy the spring, enjoy the summer, do something fun, get to the ballpark. We got baseball in full swing. Opening day has long since passed, and we're in the full swing of things. So if you want to go to a Major League Baseball game, if you want to go to a pro basketball game or hockey game, obviously the playoffs are full speed ahead. Concert season. I love going to a concert. Love just having a few brewskis, singing along. The Sphere, that thing I've heard is incredible. So you want to do anything, just search Game Time, price point, the venue, the team. It doesn't get any easier. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, that's JOHN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN, that's JOHN, for download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I have loved this event for as long as I can remember. It's why I aspired to work in the NFL. It's still, I kind of get it makes me feel like a kid again right around this time. It's got a little bit of a Christmas feel to it. I love the excitement that fans get for their individual teams. I mean, there's nothing more powerful, you could argue, in the world than the power of hope and the belief that something is going to create a positive change. And we are disappointed often, but every once in a while, the draft changes a team's fortunes for a long period of time. And the best part about it is it could be a fifth round pick, it could be a third round pick. It's not obviously always your first round pick that is the guy that helps turn around your franchise, that becomes the best player on your team, that becomes one of the best players in the NFL. And it's why, to me, one of the most important guiding principles I have when discussing the draft, it's an economic exercise. And obviously, you are trying to pick talented players, but the best general managers and the best front offices know how to balance the ability to pay the right price for the asset. And that's what you're doing. This basically becomes the stock market, supply and demand. It's why I've taken a lot of heat, and a lot of people thought I was nuts that I'm being critical of Ashton Jeanty. But I simply look at it like an economic equation. If there are, depending on the teams you talk to, 8 to 10 guys that are going to be starters in the NFL at running back, and some teams think that there are going to be 4 or 5 high-end starters at that position, even if you value Jeanty as the number one running back in the class, which I would imagine that is, I don't know if it's universal, but probably 90-95% of teams have him ranked as the number one guy. If you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, if you're the Vegas Raiders, and you're drafting fifth or sixth, You could easily take them and no one will complain and you'll get an A on your draft grade and fans will be really excited. But are you better off using that capital, which is very valuable capital, a fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever in the top 10, on a position that historically gets harder and harder to draft as we go through the rounds? Offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and use your second round pick or your third round pick on that position, where historically you're able to find a ton of starters at running back in the later rounds. But specifically in this draft, that it's basically an objective opinion and it's no one's arguing with anyone going, it's loaded at that position, making a decision going, you know what? We're going to get that guy later. I say it all the time with wide receivers that DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, a lot of guys get drafted in the second, third, fourth round, go on to be Pro Bowl level players. So you can use a pick if you have a top 15 pick, even if you need a wide receiver, get that guy in the second or third or the fourth round. Hell, take two wide receivers over the course of your entire draft. And listen, I was around Howie Roseman, and I would say no one is better at navigating the landscape of knowing what do I have to pay for the guy. And when it comes to the draft, that's based on draft picks. So if I have the 10th pick and I really, really like a guy, if I have the opportunity to go from 10 to 17, can I still get the same player that I would have taken at 10? No one knows. But it is the general manager's job to have a pretty good idea of yeah, I think we got an 80% chance of going to 17 and getting that player. And even if we don't get that player, there are two other guys that we would highly consider taking at pick 10 that we would love to take at 17 while also adding maybe a third round pick. It's why when people push back on my Jeanty arguments, which again, I am pro Ashton Jeanty, excellent player. I just couldn't take him in the top 10. Not when I know that there are a ton of other guys at that position I could easily draft in the top 100 that can start for me at running back, while I also get a high-end defensive lineman, a high-end offensive lineman, which we just learned by Howie Roseman is the way to build a championship team. Dominate in the trenches. It was ultimately the downfall of the Kansas City Chiefs, the reason that they didn't win 3 straight Super Bowls, which easily could have happened, but they couldn't block anybody. And it's difficult to find starting offensive tackles in the third and fourth round. Doesn't mean you can't, but more than likely, you won't. And I think when you look at this draft, you have to understand that it's going to be tough to trade. So I'm not crushing any team that takes a guy. It's like, that guy was overdrafted. Well, we would love to have moved back 6 or 7 spots. No one would make a trade with us. But I also think teams that don't understand the value of players, and this became the downfall of Bill Belichick in the last couple years of his run in New England, is he was taking guys in the second or third round that he could have gotten the fifth or sixth. And that's on him as the general manager to understand the value of these individuals. And some teams don't like their scouts or their front office, including coaches, when they do these evaluations, to put grades in terms of what round the guy is going to get drafted on. I've always thought that was kind of stupid. That's the whole exercise that we're doing is like, is this guy a third round pick or is he a first round pick? Because if he's a guy that we can get in the third round that most teams are going to view that way, we would be insane to use pick 22 on this player. When even if we wanted to quote unquote overdraft, overpay, take him in the second round and add another player in the first round instead of wasting all that capital on a guy that is not worth that relative to the NFL. And I also think another thing smart teams will do is understanding the future draft. So this draft is widely considered not a great one. I think Diana Rossini had a quote today from a coach that there aren't a lot of Robert De Niro's in this draft, aka not a lot of stars. So when there aren't a lot of stars and it's not a powerful draft, it doesn't mean that these guys aren't going to be excellent players. We'll get into that in a second. What it does mean is based on their college performances, a lot of people don't see superstar potential in a lot of players. Some years it's like, and we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, that in a good draft, you should have over 20 guys graded as first round picks. It's very, very difficult to get 30 to 35 players in a draft that most teams are going to have graded as first round picks. Some years they'll be 15, some years they'll be 20. In a really good draft, they'll be 23, 24 guys. I think it's fair to assume that in this draft, some teams might have it in single digits. It doesn't mean that they don't like other players that will get drafted in the first round. They will just have those guys valued. If it was last year, yeah, take that guy at 38. Don't love him at 18. And it's on the GM to understand this. And if you ever get the opportunity, especially teams that need quarterbacks, to make a trade on a future first round pick, that can change your franchise. Now, it's on you to then nail the pick. The Giants a couple years ago from the Chicago Bears got a future first round pick to go from 11 to 20. Remember the 1 year Howie Roseman had all those first round picks, and it was in a good draft, and he was able to accumulate picks and trade for A.J. Brown and end up moving up for Jalen Carter. Like, the more assets you have, the more flexibility you are given on a yearly basis. And I'm always fascinated by the teams who are best at maneuvering up and down. And the ones that are and understand the value of the players typically are the teams that consistently win. The other thing, and I think this resonates with any human being, where you start in life, whether that's where you grow up, whether that's where you go to school, whether that's your first job, does not determine the success for the rest of your life. Obviously, there are situations if you go to a private school growing up, if you go to a good college, if you are given a great job out of college because of someone you know, it can set you up on the right path. But then for most people, including athletes, just because you're the number one overall pick, that does not guarantee you a goddamn thing. And there are going to be a ton of players over the next 7 rounds of this draft, but specifically after the first round, moving its way toward day 3, who are going to be devastating. It really sucks getting drafted in the 4th round when you thought you could go in the 2nd round. When you end up going in the 2nd round and you're like, I wanted to be a first round pick. But at the end of the day, it is on you once training camp happens, once OTAs happen, obviously once the season happens, and moving forward to separate yourself. And the best part about football, more than all the other sports, baseball a little bit because of the minor leagues, but definitely different than basketball, that every year we see an undrafted free agent, multiple undrafted free agents, not only make NFL teams. I think on average, an undrafted free agent makes every team. The bad teams typically sometimes have like 3 or 4 guys make the team. Well, they're making the team typically because they're beating out guys who were just drafted. Guys that were drafted in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, not even just in this immediate draft, but maybe last year draft that spent time on the practice squad. And while it's cliche and people laugh at it, you're either getting better or worse. No one stays the same. And that video that went viral for a long, long time and still a meme of Tom Brady with the long hair talking to Steve Sable at NFL Films, crying about how difficult draft day was because he went on a walk with his dad. He didn't get drafted the 6th round. I saw a clip the other day from Brian Branch, the star kind of safety nickel, do-it-all DB for the Detroit Lions, who played at Alabama, who said draft night was one of the worst nights of his professional and football career. Thought he was a first-round pick. Thought he was like a first-round lock. He ended up not going till pick 45. And now several years later in the NFL, he's widely considered one of the Swiss Army knives of defensive football and one of the better players on one of the better teams in the league. And I think sometimes when you fall, Lamar Jackson fell. Hell, the Ravens took another guy in the 1st round before they even selected Lamar Jackson. I'd say it worked out pretty well for him. Look at Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. While both of them are making a lot of money now, they didn't exactly benefit from going to the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. And ultimately, their early failures and turbulent starts did not end their careers. The NBA 82-game grind is done. And now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. Can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in games all the way through the finals. Now, the time to back your favorite players and teams as they chase glory. All season long, DraftKings has been your go-to spot for NBA player props, and that doesn't stop now. Want to make your playoff experience even more intense? Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will Curry drop 30? Will LeBron drop 40 or more? It's your call. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, lock in your bets, and let's make the playoff run unforgettable. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Now, I will never argue that starting out being the 7th overall pick is better than being the 77th overall pick, especially financially. You are guaranteed a ton of money. You are given a 4-year guaranteed contract. The pressure on the organization and the coaching staff for using that valuable asset on you forces them to give you more opportunities. And that branding of being a top pick, especially a top 10, top 15 pick, stays with you even after it should be irrelevant 4, 5, 6 years later. It's like, well, this guy was a really high pick and we liked him coming out. Well, yeah, have you seen him play? He stinks. It happens all the time. Hell, Daniel Jones just got $15 million from the Indianapolis Colts. If Daniel Jones hadn't been the 6th overall pick and had been the 166th pick, probably doesn't go that way. Trey Lance is a good example. I thought he'd be out of the league, but he was a top 5 pick. And even Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers gave him $1.5 million guaranteed this year to compete for the backup quarterback job. If he had been a 6th-round pick, that's not happening. So getting drafted high does stay with you and present more opportunities. But just because opportunities are presented, it doesn't mean a goddamn thing. And the amount, the league is full of George Kittles and Max Crosby's and guys that are drafted on the 3rd day of the draft on every team that are some of the best players in the league, some of the highest paid players in the league. Hell, guys that are drafted at the end of the 1st round that are the 6th, 7th guy at their own position on Thursday night go on to be the best individual at that position in their draft. Happens every year, if not every other year. And the thing that I admire most about this sport is how difficult it is, how hard it is, mentally, physically, how much goes into this being successful. And obviously tomorrow night and over the next couple nights are really cool, and all these teams add all these players. But then once practice starts, they don't even necessarily start at the same spot, because when you're a 1st and 2nd round pick, you are more likely to get the opportunity to run with the 1s. At minimum, you're running with the 2s. But over the course of the next 12 months, 24 months, if you do not perform, if you do not play well, if you do not make plays, if you do not know what you're doing, and other guys do, you will get lapped. Because the nature of this sport, the amount of guys that get injured, the cycling of backups and practice squatters getting opportunities over the course of the season isn't potentially going to happen. It's a guaranteed outcome. Guys end up playing. And when you end up playing, the film is your resume. And that's how people that like, oh, how did this guy, not in a million years did anyone think when Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft, he would be the starting quarterback for the Niners as a rookie in the playoffs. But then one guy breaks his ankle, another guy breaks his foot, and all of a sudden he's starting. Then all of a sudden he's doing good. Then several years later, he's in negotiations for a contract somewhere between probably $125 and $190 million guaranteed. Obviously, that's a big difference, but we are talking an astronomical amount of money for a guy that was the last pick in the draft just a couple years ago. And he's an example I use because he plays quarterback, but there are examples like him all over the place. The Eagles' starting left tackle had never played NFL football, came from Australia. Several years later, Jeff Stoutland coaches him up. Jason Peters is gone, and now he's one of the best left tackles in the league. And all the paths, all of our paths to get wherever we're going are never going to be the same. My path is different than your path, is different than the next guy's path. But we control a decent amount of it. And it's easy to get down when shit doesn't go our way, just like it is easy to pout if you get drafted in the fourth round and you go, shit, I think I'm better than like 80% of the guys at my position that just got drafted over me over the last 3 rounds. This is insane. I had to fall 50 picks. At the end of the day, it was out of your control where you ended up going. And who cares? When that ball, if you're a running back, gets handed off to you, go make some plays and you'll be fine. If you're a wide receiver, get open. The ball will come your way. If you're a linebacker, go make some freaking tackles. And when you do, you'll be rewarded for it because you'll play. And then all of a sudden, we'll look back and be like, God, that guy was drafted in the fifth round. He had an 11-year career. And 3 guys at his position were drafted in the first and second round. They didn't even make it 5 years because the average lifespan of an NFL player is like a little over 3 years. And we see it all the time. That factors in first round picks as well. So buckle up. Obviously, it's going to be a huge story who falls, who doesn't. But I'm fascinated by what happens going forward, not what happened based on the past. And that's all the draft is. It's you're drafted based on what you've done. But once you get drafted, no one gives a shit anymore. Uh, I did want to hit on a couple things that I'm most fascinated on going moving forward over the next couple nights. The stories to me that are by far like I find the most interesting, and I don't even think it's debatable. The number one story in this draft, and listen, after a while you get tired of talking about it, but then the draft comes like, where's Shedeur Sanders going to go? Are all these teams that need a quarterback, the Browns, the Giants, the Steelers, just 100% not going to draft a quarterback in the first round? Even if they don't draft a quarterback, especially the Browns and the Giants, really high in the draft, do either of them trade back up? Do they like quarterbacks other than Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart? Are we sure that is only one quarterback going to go in the first round? Are those 2 guys going to go with Cam Ward as well? How many guys are going to go in the first 3 rounds? Like Kyle McCord, uh, the Louisville quarterback who's older than Brock Purdy, Will Howard, Riley Leonard, all these quarterbacks that we watched play in college this year and have a lot of success. Are any of them going to get drafted in the second or third round? Because we have seen in recent memory a lot of guys that get drafted in the second and third round either become immediate starters or become a starter after a year or two and have long careers. So, listen, quarterbacks are always going to drive the draft. This one has a little bit less sizzle, but there are a lot of names, and there are some marquee teams. I mean, in theory, the Giants are one of the biggest brands in all of the NFL, and they have been terrible, atrocious for over a decade. I mean, really, really bad. I mean, back-to-back years, them drafting really high. That's that ain't good, especially in a conference or excuse me, a division where the Eagles just won the Super Bowl and they've been in the playoffs 3 straight years, 2 of the last 3 years in the Super Bowl. The Cowboys had a stretch where they won 3 straight years of 12 plus games, and they had an awful year this year, and they're drafting 12. And the Commanders, who have kind of been one of the running jokes of the league, just made the conference championship. And I would say if they were a stock, everyone would invest in them. So I'm fascinated to watch what the Giants do at quarterback. I'd be a little stunned if they don't take a guy with their first couple picks, but who knows? And listen, you guys know where I stand on the running back situation, but just because I don't necessarily believe it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So is Ashton Jeanty? I saw a headline today. Jags, they're leaning offense. Would they take Ashton Jeanty? Once upon a time, they took a running back really high. Safe to say they regretted it pretty quick. And that guy's name was Leonard Fournette, who was the number one running back prospect in high school football, went to LSU, became a stud. Now, I'll never forget the game that he had against Alabama, got exposed a little bit, but did not live up to the hype. And Ashton Jeanty, who's coming from a much smaller school, would they do that? Would the Patriots entertain him at 4? I have a hard time seeing Vrabel, who former player, high level player, massive dude, whose success as a coach happened with just a massive blue chip running back. Everyone's like, why do you keep talking about his height? I don't know, because it'd be difficult for me to draft a 5'8" guy in the top 5. Call me crazy, call me a loon. But I think that's nuts. But I'm prepared for him to go really, really high, and fascinated to watch how that goes down. Makes Brad Holmes, if he does go pick 4, 5, 6, 7, whenever, look like a genius for not only getting a awesome running back at pick 12, but accumulating another pick and getting Laporta. It essentially became a 2-for-1. So where does Ashton Jeanty go? And yeah, I mean, I think he will immediately be one of the more fascinating guys from this draft moving forward. And then I just think from a big picture standpoint, how many famous veteran players get traded? I think it starts with Jalen Ramsey. He is. You want him? Come get him. Tyreek Hill. Is Tyreek Hill going to get traded over the next couple of days? Would anyone trade for him given some of the stuff that's going on off the field with him? Obviously, the two kind of famous tight ends, they're not even hiding their teams. Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews, like, are one of these guys, are both of them going to get dealt? I think it's pretty clear that teams that like Tyler Warren and teams that like Loveland from Michigan, if you don't land one of those guys and you're not comfortable with other guys in this draft, would you pull the trigger and trade for one of these guys? Because I think there's a decent chance that by the end of the weekend, both these two tight ends are on other teams. And obviously, there are a bunch of other names that maybe we don't see coming that are going to get dealt. And I think when you look at quarterback, obviously Aaron Rodgers is a free agent. Is Kirk Cousins going to get traded over the next couple of days? Because you got to give him some credit. Everyone's like, well, he's not going to show up to OTAs. Even Raheem Morris was like, we don't expect him to be there. And Kirk Cousins was like, screw you. I'll be there. Yeah, I'm a high level cat. I can handle a little controversy. See you there. Tuesday, he was there. And is he just trying to act in good faith, trying to show the league that, like, listen, I'm a total team guy. If I got to be the backup for $27.5 million, I'll be the highest paid backup in the history of the league. Obviously, we have seen starters get benched that made a lot of money, but we've never seen a backup going into OTAs that makes almost $30 million. So would the Falcons trade him if someone is not willing to eat any of the money? Are they adamant that someone's got to eat $10 million and essentially get Cousins on like a 1 year, $10 million contract? But a lot of these big name guys and a lot of famous players, now just because you're famous doesn't mean you can play anymore, are going to get traded over the next couple days. Okay, before we get out of here, I got to welcome you to Chasing Challenges, brought to you by Microsoft. In the NFL, just like in the business world, overcoming obstacles is key to success. Microsoft empowers business decision makers with AI solutions, simplified cloud and data management, and trustworthy, responsible technology to turn challenges into opportunities. In this segment, we will explore some of the biggest challenges being faced in the NFL and how they can be overcome. Whatever the challenge you're facing, Microsoft empowers you with the expertise to say, bring it on. This week, we're discussing the challenge faced by all these NFL teams. Drafting is hard. It's not an exact science because you're dealing with human beings. I saw this quote from Kyle Shanahan that I thought kind of summed up why this thing is so difficult. And all these teams are wrestling right now with, how do we balance this guy's talent with this guy, the person? Because at the end of the day, you are not drafting the player just on the field. You're drafting the human being in your building. Here was a quote from Kyle Shanahan from my guy Matt Barrows' article in The Athletic. There are some guys who are rough around the edges, Shanahan said, but they work their asses off, and football is everything. You just put them around the right type guys, and they'll thrive because they love football. If they're talented and there are some issues and they don't love football, it never works out. I think that sums it all up. And all these teams are trying to get to the bottom of all these players. How much do you love football? How much do you love this sport? Are you just doing it for the money? Are you just doing it for the fame? Are you just doing it because God gave you these great gifts that most people don't have? And that has enabled you to play college football at a high level. Because if that's the reason, not because you love everything that the sport's about, the practice, the grind, the lifting, the film preparation, you practice way more than you play. Most guys in the NFL bust and don't work out, not because they don't have the ability. Most guys they're going to be drafted, not just in the first round, but all the way through the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round, have special physical attributes, awesome characteristics that translate to the NFL. But do they have the intangibles, the toughness, the mental fortitude, the love of this profession that they're now being drafted into? Some guys do, and they will go on to be some of the best players in the league. And the guys that don't will get exposed really, really quick. That's it for this week's Chasing Challenges. Remember, Microsoft's AI solutions empowers you to take bold steps and make informed decisions, sparking new ideas to help drive your business forward. With Microsoft as your trusted partner, you navigate your journey with confidence, finding innovative solutions and reaching new possibilities. Visit Microsoft.com/challengers to learn more.